Hi, friend. This is Alex McRobs, founder of the Mindful Life Practice, and you're listening to the Sober Yoga Girl podcast. I'm a Canadian who moved across the world to the Middle East at age 23, and I never went back. I got sober in 2019, and I now live full-time in Bali, Indonesia. I've made it my mission to help other women around the world stop drinking, start yoga, and change their lives through my online Sober Girls Yoga community. You're not alone, and a sober life can be fun and fulfilling. Let me show you how.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So apparently we're live right now. We are like 18 minutes late for this live because every technical thing that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong in the last 18 minutes. All the Wi-Fi's are not working. The live stream wasn't working. I really didn't think it was going to happen at one point, but we are live right now, finally. And
Yay!
I hope that some of you are tuning in. I see a couple of you watching. If you could just comment and let us know where you're watching from, if you have any questions. And I am sitting here today with Gretchen, who is 100 days sober. Congratulations,
Yay!
Gretchen. What like a massive accomplishment. It's huge.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels big going from 2 digits to 3.
Yeah, that's massive. Is it your first time getting to 100 days?
Oh no, I've had really long sober streaks, but I haven't got to 100 days in a while. So the last time I got to 100 days, it was in 2020.
Amazing. And good for you for getting on again, like after.
So yeah, my relationship with alcohol and being alcohol free has not been linear at all. It's been, more of a circle than a straight line for sure.
Yeah. So I was wondering maybe if you could tell us more about that, like more about your journey, kind of your history with drinking and sort of just a little bit about your story.
Sure thing. Well, knowing I was going to do this live, I started thinking about my history. And the first time I had a drink was when I was 14. And I was a really shy and a child who didn't have a lot of self-confidence. And I remember when I had that drink, I just felt so different and so alive and fun and full of confidence. And so it made me want to keep doing that. So I drank quite a bit in high school and college, but I always managed to do my studies and work. So I never really had problems with drinking impacting my studies or my work. I managed to hold it together. But I did party a lot, and my drinking was different from a lot of my friends in that I blacked out a lot and, was just very irresponsible, would, sleep around and wake up in places that I didn't know where I was with people who I hadn't really met in any sort of, conscious way. But, in college, a lot of people drank. And so I wasn't pointed out as being someone who was a real problem. I was never a, violent drunk, and I didn't really do things that got me in trouble with friends or coworkers or anything. So just kept going. And then in the early days of being married, we partied a lot still. I moved from the US to France and was in a crowd with a lot of British people. And we were all young and didn't have kids, and we partied a lot. And then I managed to stop drinking and smoking cigarettes when I was pregnant, but went back to drinking and would still have the same problems, basically blacking out. And but it was so normal for me that I didn't realize how dangerous it was. And I didn't realize that it only happened to me because I really didn't talk about it. I would try to piece together. I was like a detective in my spare time, trying to piece together what I had done the night before or what happened. And I was pretty good at it. So it sort of went unnoticed. And when I was about 20, my father decided to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was kind of a surprise to me because he was never he was never my stereotypical definition of a drunk. He was not violent. He would just fall asleep on the sofa. So I was kind of surprised, but he started going to AA. And so when my drinking got to a point where it got to be a problem with my husband, because I got divorced and remarried. My father died in 2013, and it was about a year after that with the grief and with family issues, having a blended family, different parenting styles, and several teenagers in the house at the same time, I just started to use drinking as a crutch and a coping mechanism, and the blackouts got more common, and finding me just really drunk happened several times. And so my husband basically made it clear that if he saw me like that again, it was over. And because my father had gone to AA, I knew I could do that. So I didn't want to go to AA in person in southeastern France, but I found AA online. There's a platform called In the Rooms, and I started going to that. And I stayed sober for nearly a year and a half. So it worked for me, but I didn't love it. Some of the parts of AA I thought were great, and then other parts, like for example, I didn't feel that I had an allergy to alcohol, and I didn't feel like I had these character flaws and things like that. So that happened, and then I started drinking again, and then in 2019 found 1 Year No Beer, and had some success with that. I never got to a year, but I got to about 9 months, and I had several pretty long sober streaks. And I started just, I was still drinking on and off between these sober streaks, and sometimes it was bad again. But I knew what to do then. I guess I knew I could get sober, and I knew that there was this other alternative to AA, which was this kind of fun, alcohol-free, live your best life type of attitude that I liked.
And I can so resonate with that was what really drew me into 1 Year No Beer as well. And it's amazing because that's actually where you and I met, and so many of the key people in the mindful life practice, like Lee, who's one of our yoga teachers, Matt, Jules, a bunch of us all kind of came together in 1 Year No Beer. And it was like this little community of like yoga 1 Year No Beer people. And that was one of the key kind of founding things of our community. So even though I'm no longer part of 1 Year No Beer, it's amazing because it played that role in my life of like putting me in touch with all these incredible people that like, I can't even imagine if I didn't know you, for example, or Matt or Jules, like my life would be so different. So it's amazing how even if one community might not be like the exact right thing for us, it can set in motion so many different opportunities and experiences and connections.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really not active on 1 Year No Beer anymore either, but I've stayed in touch with different people from that big group, and that's been great. So I guess my attitude towards not drinking has changed a lot, and that's how I've managed to get to 100 days this time, I think, is because every time I do drink, the hard thing is for me when the drinking is not always bad every time for everyone. I had plenty of times when I drank where it was great and I had a fantastic time, and living in France, the wine culture is huge, and I went to wine tastings, vineyards, and I've had a lot of fun with it. So that's sometimes a little hard to reconcile and say goodbye to. So I mean, for many reasons, I think people would have a hard time saying I'm never going to drink again. So I don't say that, but I really would like to get to a year now on my own volition, and not like AA, like I can't drink because there's something wrong with me, but I really want to get to a year because I know that my life is better without alcohol, because I don't have a reliable off button, and I just have no idea when I'm going to drink if it's going to be fun and okay, or if I'm going to end up with a blackout and a huge hangover.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way you've described that of like, it's not that there's something wrong with me. It's just my off button isn't reliable. And that's it's such a nice way to put it, because I bet so many people can relate to that here, right? Of like, it's not like I certainly had times with alcohol that were positive and fun and like happy memories. It's not like I destroyed my life necessarily, but I just had times that were not so fun, like you described. And if you could choose one or the other, then, I would choose the other.
Yeah. And then everything that's come out in the last, I don't know, decade, maybe, about alcohol. I've read a lot of the Quit Lit, and even listened to podcasts that are pretty scientific about alcohol and what it does to you. And maybe I am more sensitive to alcohol than some other people, but in the end, it really is a dangerous, addictive drug. And anybody who's drinking at all is like playing with fire. And it's not uncommon for people to just start relying on it a little bit too much, and then it's spiraling. I mean, the last time I got really drunk, it wasn't the last time I drank, because the last time I drank, it was okay. But the time before that, I was with a friend, and most of my really bad drinking was alone. But this particular time I was with a friend, and I didn't even drink that much in quantity, but I also hadn't eaten a lot. And I probably drank too fast. I actually remember going to bed, but in the morning, I felt poisoned, really poisoned. And I was so sick. I threw up and was sick all day, had a massive headache. And I really thought back to everything that I've read about how, it is poison. It's an addictive drug. And I thought, whoa, I do not want to feel like this ever again.
And that's amazing. That was enough to so would you say that was like the moment that kickstarted this phase of your journey, or what else kind of set it in motion?
Yeah, it was that. And it's also just, I've been doing this for so many years now, drinking basically since age 14, and I'm now 51. It's pretty clear that even if I stop drinking for a while, when I start drinking again, my drinking episodes and the amount and the regularity just ramps up quickly. So certainly that really bad hangover kicked it off. But then I was traveling, and I had a couple glasses of champagne at the airport with a friend and a colleague. It was a little kind of soft, somewhat peer pressure situation. But I decided to go back to being alcohol free after that. And I decided to start counting again, because I really want a year without anything, without a drop, without a blip.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the strategies, like when you were making that transition in the early days, what are some of the tools or the strategies or the things you implemented to keep yourself alcohol free?
That's a great question. I mean, I think for everyone in the beginning, it's hard, because to not drink in most societies, you have to be a bit of a rebel, because it's just everywhere. So in the beginning, it was hard. I mean, I think when I was in AA, I just kind of cut myself off socially. I explained to very good friends, but then I basically stopped going out. I really changed my habits. And then when I was in 1 Year No Beer, I felt like I still wanted to go out and see friends. So I presented it as a challenge. Originally I said, I'm doing a 28-day challenge, no alcohol, and so it kind of started like that. But through time, I started to share, especially with my closer friends, the fact that alcohol and I don't really have a good relationship. And when I started really to share that, it was super interesting, because some friends also opened up that they felt like they drank too much. And I had a conversation with one friend where she said that she had kind of noticed that the way I drank was kind of different from most people. I thought I was just kind of going under the radar, but I guess not so much. So just, I guess being honest. And so little by little, whether I said I was doing a challenge or whether I was more honest and said that I've got a bit of a sketchy relationship with alcohol and I'm better without it, little by little over the years, I've created this identity for myself that's linked to not drinking. And that's amazing. And it gives me a lot of freedom because a lot of friends, if I haven't seen them for a while, they'll kind of say to me, oh, are you drinking or not? And that's great because I can say, no, I'm not drinking right now. Or if I am, I can say yes, but it's really nice to have that flexibility that I really have created this identity for myself. And that's super important because when I was drinking too heavily, I remember that was one of the things that bothered me the most was I felt like I had this disconnect between who I was trying to be in my life and then this irresponsible drinking, because I was interested in well-being, wellness, yoga. I was running, I was eating correctly and all that. And then I would go off and like have a bottle of wine by myself alone or go out and drink too much and, black out. And I really felt like, how come I can't like manage this better so that it fits in with the rest of my life? And then I realized, well, I can, but I just have to stop.
And I can so relate to that because I think like so many parts of your story, I feel are so similar to mine. And I also found yoga and was practicing yoga while also drinking and trying to navigate this balance. And it's so odd to me when I look back because I'm like, now I can't even imagine like doing yoga or teaching yoga or practicing yoga hungover, but I used to do it all the time like back in the day. And so I can so relate to having like these two parts of you that are like in conflict, and you're trying to like manage the two of them and kind of like, it's almost like the hero and the villain or the Jekyll and Hyde or whatever. And you're trying to like make the good one take over. But it's for me, it was also becoming sober. That was the solution for that.
Yeah. It's, at first, I think I know that when I have stopped drinking, there have been moments in the past when I felt sad, especially in AA. I felt like I had lost something. But the philosophy that One Year No Beer has, and that I think, we have as this sober community, is that you're really not losing anything. What you're gaining outweighs anything that you might be losing.
Yeah, that's so true. And framing it in the gains and the positives and the successes for me was just a huge shift, really positive shift.
Yeah. And then I used to be more inspired by Quitlet, which is still amazing. But I guess today, just as my yoga practice has deepened, I'm more inspired by the yamas and niyamas and just yogic philosophy, keeping my temple clean.
Yeah.
And being truthful, and things like that.
So tell me speaking about yoga philosophy, and the role of yoga. There was this moment where I remember the day when you signed up for the 108-day recovery, when you were like having a bit of a questioning moment. Tell me a bit about that. Like, what was the challenge and how did you like talk yourself out of it?
Well, I guess part of it was that I had done this so many times. I had been on and off the wagon so many times. And I already knew quite a bit about yogic philosophy. So I just wasn't sure that the 108-day group would be right for me.
Yeah.
It is a little challenging just in the fact that we're in such different time zones that I can't get to everything live. But Cathy is amazing. And the other women in the group that I've met are amazing. And it's cool to be able to review in depth the koshas and the yamas and the niyamas. Because, as yoga teachers, there's so much that we may have learned, but we're not super familiar with it. it's kind of like a language. If you don't use it, you're going to forget a little bit. So it's a good review and deepening of that knowledge. And then just the support of other women is amazing. It's so non-judgmental, and whatever you say, you might think that you've done like these horrible things, and whatever you say, other people have done it, or they thought about doing it, or whatever. I mean, here I am, like a yoga teacher. I'm a university lecturer. And I was, hiding bottles all over the place. I was, trying to hide my drinking. I was lying about my drinking. It was behavior that just was not compatible with the person that I wanted to be. And there are some moments that I'm definitely ashamed of, but I'm not going to dwell in that because, I'm human.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about so being a university professor. I was also a school teacher, and I felt this like fear and stigma around speaking about my sobriety and what people would think of me being a teacher. Do you ever go through things like thoughts about that being a professor?
Well, that's a good question. I have mentioned in some classes that I don't drink, or that I am doing a year with no alcohol.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just, I don't, I haven't really shared my struggles with my students, although I probably would if they came to me and needed help. But it's not something I would share in a classroom. But I guess I wish that maybe when I was their age that someone had talked to me about the fact that, you can go for a long time without drinking. You can test that out and see what it's like for you. I really felt like I didn't have anything like what is available today in the sobriety world, the online sobriety world. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And I completely agree. I actually almost made a TikTok about this yesterday, and then I never finished it. But on TikTok, I have my former students and their parents coming across me a lot, because like TikTok Arabic is like a big thing. And so anyway, a kid commented on one of my posts being like, "Miss Alexandra, it's me, Hassan, your student." And I was like, okay, first of all, I taught so many Hassans because I was in the Middle East for like 6 years. But I think I know which kid it is. And then I started working on a video response, and then I never finished it. But basically what I was talking about in my video response was how I used to be super fearful about it. And even though my students were 6 years old, which is really young, they're getting older and older. Some of them now, I first taught grade 3. I think my first group of kids is now in high school. And I think you're never too young to have this positive role model choosing a substance like an alcohol-free life. Like maybe some of the content is like inappropriate. I'm to see some of the stuff, but the general message is that, my life is better alcohol-free, and they can have a really happy and healthy life without alcohol. And just like you said, like I didn't have any adults sharing that message when I was young.
Yeah. I guess what's cool is, sometimes when I see people who are younger than I am, who have gotten sober or stayed sober for a long time, I wish that I had done that for my kids. But at the same time, I did have sober streaks since 2014. And my kids all know that I go through long periods without drinking, and that I've been very open with my kids, telling them that I have a bit of trouble with alcohol. And so they have done alcohol-free periods. My stepdaughter and my sons have, especially one son just did a month recently, and he's only 22. So yeah. And he asked me, because I always have a ton of alcohol-free fun drinks. And so he asked me for some of my recommendations. I've got the 3 spirits drinks. I do a lot of mocktails. I've got the martini, no alcohol. I've got this kind of French like gin substitute, and a French bitter orange substitute that you can make spritzes with.
Amazing. And what a positive role model for your kids? Because I grew up in a family of drinkers, and I had one role model for me, my uncle, who went alcohol free. And he actually had a long period of probably 3 different times when he quit for a little while and then went back, and then quit for a little while, went back, and now he's finally sober. And it was like the most positive example for me. And, he never preached. He never was like annoying about it. He just did it. And we just saw it. And I think what better role modeling than to just kind of do it and be that example for your children. I bet they've learned so much from watching your challenges and overcoming it.
Yeah, it really is so ingrained in society. I mean, we just had friends over recently, and I mentioned, well, actually one of the guys tried to fill my glass with wine, and I said, no, thanks, I'm not drinking. And my husband actually said she doesn't drink, which it's taken a while for him to get on board with this whole thing, but he's very supportive now. And I said that I wanted to do a year with no alcohol, and this friend of ours looked horrified and said, but there will be Christmas and there will be, all these holidays. And I said, yeah, and I'll celebrate them and not drink.
And how do you, well, I guess I have 2 questions for you. One is what are your goals for your first year sober? Do you have any big things you want to accomplish? And then my second question was going to be, actually, I should not ask 2 questions at once. I'll save the second question to after. So the first question is, what are your dreams or visions? What's on your vision board for your sober year?
Well, I think one of the things that we notice when we stop drinking is that we have more time.
Yeah.
And in addition to not drinking, I also started just this month a digital declutter. I read this book, Digital Minimalism, and I felt like I was wasting too much time on social media and just online in general. And this book really encourages you to rethink your relationship with some online tools that you choose. And I've noticed that, so with not drinking and with this digital declutter, I really do have a lot more time. And I'm trying to use that time to just be a bit more organized and get ahead in my work so that I'm not so swamped. Try and tackle my procrastinating habit a little bit. Procrastinating is not always a bad thing. I actually read that in another book, and I agree with it, that it gives you time to actually think about what you're going to do before you do it. But yeah, just feeling like I'm not scurrying around trying to get things done just to be calmer about things.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. It reminds me, someone I know is working on a project called the Slow Year. And I love it. The idea of just we feel like we have to just get on this hamster wheel and run and accomplish all these things. And I love that idea of just stepping back and decluttering and creating space.
Yeah. Also, I'm involved in a lot of different activities, both at work and outside of work. And I'm rethinking how and if I'm going to continue some of these things, just because I feel like I'm a yes person, and sometimes that just gets to be too much. So I want more time to be able to do things that I like and not be so engaged in, especially, I guess, work outside of work, and then also being careful to not say yes to too many more projects at work.
Yeah. Which I think when you have sobriety, you kind of have that clarity and also the confidence to set the boundaries that you need for your well-being. Yeah.
And I guess, well, the new thing this year, which is starting tomorrow actually, is that I'm going to start teaching yoga in person.
That's amazing. That's so exciting.
Which is, and in French, which I'm a little bit nervous about because my French is really good, but my yoga French is not really great. So we'll see how that goes. I've been, trying to learn some of the postures in French, and I know it will be fine, but that's kind of a new challenge that I might not have dared to do that before.
That's so exciting. And you learn so much from like all the different, like I've taught yoga in a lot of different environments and settings and with different groups of people. And you just learn so much about yourself and about the practice. And, you know, it's like a new chapter of the journey. So it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, my second question for you, this was another question that came up when you were talking about all the people asking you about sober holidays. I was wondering, what advice would you have for people that are going through their first sober holidays? Like, I'm sure there's people listening that are doing like their first sober Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever it is that they celebrate. What are some of the things that you've learned through your experiences?
I'd say be prepared with fun alcohol-free drinks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a holiday, so treat yourself. Spend some money on some nice mocktail mixes and things that you might think, oh, that's too expensive, but think of how much money you spent on alcohol. So I mean, getting some nice alcohol-free drinks, I think, and making mocktails is a great idea. And then just knowing that holidays are about the holiday and about friends and family, and being present with them is such a gift that you're not worrying and not drinking. You don't have to worry about things that maybe you used to worry about. Like, am I drinking faster than other people? You know, is there enough wine for everyone? You know, and then worrying about like, oh my God, like, did I talk too much? Did I say the wrong thing? You know, you're not going to have any of that holiday drama because you're going to be in control of yourself. and that's really nice. But yeah, treat yourself with really lovely non-alcohol drinks and food, and just be happy to be present.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. I don't think when I had my sober Christmas, I'm like, I don't think I had brought with me when I had my sober Christmas. I just remember one before the pandemic where I was with my family. That's why I say like my sober Christmas, because the rest were a little different, you know, and like the rest I spent Christmas by myself or like with one friend in Dubai. But I don't think I brought alcohol-free wine with me to the resort we were staying at. But in hindsight, I feel like I could probably have done it. Like if I said to the restaurant managers, you know, I don't drink, this is my alcohol-free wine, they probably would have allowed it, because it's like, you know, it's not bringing in alcohol. I don't know what the rules are around that. But for me, we don't do Christmas at the house anymore. We always go to a restaurant because no one wants to cook. So I'm just thinking for me, like, would I be able to bring an alternative? Because that is definitely a nice thing to do on a holiday, like to have a treat that feels adult and feels fun and feels different.
Yeah. And even if it's not possible to bring your own, insisting on having a wine glass to drink sparkling water out of, for me, that makes all the difference. I like a nice glass, and I've even found nice drinks that are not, fancy mocktails, but one of the things I like to do is get a good red grape juice, and like half red grape juice and half sparkling water. Or just sparkling water with some lime or lemon, or kombucha. I love kombucha.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I love kombucha as well.
Yeah. So I guess when I was drinking, I just never would have explored really any of these alcohol-free options. Yeah. And there are so many of them that, you know, that's nice to do.
Yeah. Well, Gretchen, this has been so amazing, like such a special way to celebrate the 100 days. And this is like one of my favorite things. So I'm so glad the technology finally worked, and the Wi-Fi was actually pretty good throughout the call, which is great. But I just love being able to like take part in milestones, because it is like a huge deal. And right before we started the call, I asked Gretchen how she was feeling today, and she said it's like her birthday. And I remember that feeling, you know, of getting to 90 days, getting to 100 days, getting to 60 days, whatever it is. And it's something to really celebrate. So I'm so happy that we got to celebrate it. How else are you celebrating? Do you have other plans for today for yourself?
So not really. I mean, I did some work but I am going to make myself a nice mocktail. It's using one of the 3 spirit drinks, and it's called the Light and Stormy, and it's with ginger ale and this mixer. So I'll probably have that. And I'll mention it to my husband that it's 100 days. I did mention to him a few days ago because he is proud of me. I think in the past, he just didn't want to see me as an alcoholic. He didn't like that term. But he, there's no way he can hide from the fact that I've struggled with alcohol. It's been a struggle. And so it's good to have his support. I think he's proud of me too. So that's nice.
Oh, that's amazing. And so important to have a partner who is just kind of on board with whatever lifestyle changes you're undergoing.
Yeah. And he actually drinks a lot less as well since I've cut down and stopped.
Amazing. Do you think he'll ever quit altogether?
I don't think so. But then again, he doesn't really need to. He drinks so little. And there was one point where I would have liked to drink like him, but I didn't see the point. I mean, for me, I was always drinking to feel a different way, and you don't generally feel a different way with one drink.
Right.
So, yeah, I just wasn't really able to do that. And yeah, right now, I guess the goal is just to get to a year. And I highly doubt that I'll be having a drink on like day 366, but we'll see. It's hard to say forever, but I know that being alcohol free is a lifestyle choice that I want.
Yeah. So I have one, oh, your dog is so cute in the background. I have one last question for you, which is, if you had any advice for someone who's just starting out, day one of their sober journey, what would that advice be?
Well, I mean, there's several things. I think there's not just one thing you can do, but definitely read some Quit Lit, inform yourself about what alcohol is and what it does to us, because you're not some weirdo because you can't handle your alcohol. It's an addictive drug, and it's normal that people have issues with it. And then I would say be kind to yourself, because on day one, you're often there because you feel bad about yourself, and you're not a bad person. You've just consumed an addictive drug, and it's not your fault. So be kind to yourself. Don't worry about losing weight or doing anything else while you're in these first few days and weeks. I mean, just eat whatever you want, enjoy the ice cream and the cake. And then something else I did in the beginning, during the 1 year no beer phase, is I thought a lot about the little Gretchen, because not all of us, but a lot of us drink because we've had like some childhood trauma or, things in the past that make us unable to cope with life. And so I would often ask myself, like, what does the little Gretchen want? And if the little Gretchen wanted an ice cream, I would take her out and get an ice cream. And if I wanted a nap, I would take a nap. And I just tried to really kind of care for that inner child.
Oh, I love that. That's a great answer. Oh, well, Gretchen, thank you so much for doing this interview, for doing this call, celebrating your 100 days with our whole community. I think there's a lot of inspiration that people can take, especially from, someone who's just at that 100 days, which is totally achievable. If you're listening and you're someone who still hasn't done day one yet, 100 days is just 3 months from now, 3 months and 10 days. And so it makes it very relatable for someone in those early days. And so I'm sure they in particular, but everyone can take a lot from it. So thank you so much, Gretchen.
Thank you, Alex. I love this community. So thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, this is awesome.
Hi, friend. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sober Yoga Girl podcast. This community wouldn't exist without you here, so thank you. It would be massively helpful if you could subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast so it can reach more people. If we haven't met yet in real life, please come get your 1-week free trial of the Sober Girls Yoga membership and see what we're all about. Sending you love and light wherever you are in the world.